As the title suggests, we'll talk today about Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi, the controversial figure who has caused many disputes amongst historians. Some say that he was a reciter of the Quran, profoundly devoted in worship and in prayer, and the leader under whom great Islamic conquests took place, reaching new frontiers and territories. Others, however, called him a criminal, a wrongdoer, an oppressor, and a tyrant. Some even declared him an unbeliever and said he was completely outside of Islam. The truth is, I believe in the idea that no person is purely evil or purely good. That's why I tend to agree with what Imam al-Dhahabi said about him in his famous book, Siyar Alam al-Nubala, when he described him as an unjust, oppressive, tyrannical, malicious, and bloodthirsty man. At the same time, he was also courageous and cunning, and extremely intelligent. Add to that his fluency, his eloquence, and a deep reverence for the Holy Quran. When asked about him, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, if all nations were to compete in cunning, and every nation brought forth its most cunning villain, and we brought Al-Hajjaj, we would surpass them all. And despite that, during an assembly held by Umar ibn Abdul Aziz after Al-Hajjaj's death, one of the attendees spoke ill of him, and Ibn Abdul Aziz rejected that and said, have you done for Islam what Al-Hajjaj did? So what's the story of this man? And why is there so much change and contradiction in people's stances when it comes to him? Alright, to start with, his real name is Qulayb ibn Yusuf ibn al-Hakam ibn Abi Uqayl al-Thaqafi. That's his full name. As for Al-Hajjaj, it was just a nickname. According to the classical Arabic dictionary, the word Hajjaj is used to describe someone who performs Hajj a lot, someone who goes to Mecca frequently to fulfill the pilgrimage. So people would call this kind of person Hajjaj, just like we hear in our dialects, Haji, Hajjuj, and so on.
You're absolutely right, my son. There was actually a Lebanese flight attendant on the plane we took on our way back from Mecca. That flight attendant kept calling me Haji. She thought I had performed Hajj and all.
Isn't she the one who filed a harassment report against you, father? Remember her?
But why would there be a harassment report when you're coming back from Mecca, man?
Nothing, really. She just misunderstood me. I just told her no need for calling me Haji because actually I was just doing Umrah. So I told her instead of calling me Haji, call me Umri. She's the one who got upset. What am I supposed to do about that?
Anyway, when it comes to Qulayb, using the nickname Al-Hajjaj was most likely not related to Hajj. Instead, the adjective Hajjaj was used to describe him as someone used to crushing skulls and bones, because the word Hajjaj also means bone crusher. So they used to call him Abu Muhammad al-Hajjaj. His father was Yusuf al-Thaqafi. The Thaqafis are the people of Ta'if, a city in Arabia known from the famous story about attacking the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he went to invite them to Islam. And if we refer back to the verse from Surah Az-Zukhruf that says, they said, if only this Quran had been sent down to a great man from one of the two towns. The two towns referred to here are Mecca for Quraysh and Ta'if for Thaqif, which is where Al-Hajjaj was originally from. His mother was Al-Fari'a bint Hammam, who was previously the wife of the venerable companion Al-Mughira ibn Shuba. After separating from him, she married Yusuf al-Thaqafi, who is Al-Hajjaj's father. The two had a son named Qulayb, who later on became known as Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf al-Thaqafi. Let's listen together to how historians described him. He was short and insignificant man, ugly in appearance. He had an unpleasant look. He had a stammering tongue. He was passionate about giving speeches and talking excessively. A liar and a tyrant, bold and quick in shedding blood. A tyrant when it came to the limits set by God.
There is no power and no strength except with Allah. Didn't you say this was a historical episode, son? Who exactly do you mean by a short guy with the rather ugly looks who keeps on giving speeches, who is a liar and doesn't mind shedding blood too?
Al-Hajjaj, father. The guy was just saying it right here. Where did your mind take you?
You're the one whose mind will never understand this guy sitting in front of you who keeps playing cute and innocent. And what sources are you basing what you're saying on?
My sources are under the video as usual, my good man. And these were the words of Al-Hafiz ibn Kathir from hundreds of years ago, my friend. I am sorry if the descriptions happen to fit someone you know. But right now, I'm a man speaking in the shadows of history, so please focus with me.
How can you say that about one of the companions, Abuda? Weren't they mentioned in the Quran, or what?
No, brother. The companions are those who lived during the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Al-Hajjaj was one of the Tabi'een, those who lived and saw the companions after the Prophet, peace be upon him. But Al-Hajjaj neither lived during the Prophet's time nor did he even see him. Al-Hajjaj was born in the year 40 Hijri, which is about 30 years after the passing of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Just imagine, at the beginning of his life, Al-Hajjaj was a Quran teacher for children, just like his father. He learned the Quran from Abdullah ibn Abbas, and he heard hadith from Anas ibn Malik. He was extremely intelligent, sharp, shrewd, and cunning. It was said that one day, he was the preacher on the pulpit during the Friday prayer. During the call to prayer, he broke his ablution. What do you reckon he did? He couldn't tell people because something like this could be used to ridicule him for life. Instead, he said, I have realized that you do not perform ablution properly. bring me a basin and water, so that these people may learn how to perform ablution correctly. And that's it, my friend. He performed ablution in front of everyone while on the pulpit. And this story could draw our attention to two things. First, it shows his sharp intelligence and how he handled the situation quickly. And if he hadn't confided in a close friend later, none of us would have ever known about it. The second point is that if he didn't indeed fear Allah, he could have led the people in prayer without ablution. And still, no one would have known anything. He could have pretended.
What are you saying? Can people pretend during worship, fear Allah, and stop your nonsense?
Oh no. Acts of worship are probably the only acts where hypocrites can't hide their true intentions and their dark hearts. Here, what's in their hearts is imprinted onto their faces. So please, let's stick to talking about Al-Hajjaj because I'm barely holding my tongue. So during the time when Al-Hajjaj was working as a Quran and Hadith teacher, and while he was not satisfied with his job, the big conflict and strife happened between Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr, the son of Asma bint Abi Bakr, and the Umayyads. Al-Hajjaj joined the Umayyads and worked as a security agent and informant for them. One day, Raw ibn Zinba, chief of police for the Umayyads, decided to present him to Caliph Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan as the loyal and trustworthy agent he was. Immediately after that, Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf was appointed as an officer in the police force. He then quickly rose through the police ranks until he imprisoned Ibn Zinba, the very person who had initially appointed him. This was because Ibn Zinba was lax, not strict enough with his subordinates. Ibn Zinba should be grateful Al-Hajjaj didn't kill him and only imprisoned him, because at that time, Al-Hajjaj didn't yet have the authority to execute people, as we'll see in a bit. Remember the followers of Jamism and Madkalism we mentioned earlier in a different episode? The ones who sell out the rule to the ruler. They believe that the ruler is above any mistake or flaw, and that the people should obey him regardless. Well, this was Al-Hajjaj's way to win the heart of the ruler at the time, Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan. After that, Al-Hajjaj was appointed as the army commander to go out and fight, quote-unquote, the Khawarij, the label they gave to the people who took the side of Mus'ab ibn Zubair ibn al-Awwam. At the end, Al-Hajjaj defeated them in Iraq. And just like that, the Quran teacher from a small village in Thaqif became the triumphant leader, the representative of the supreme ruler, wielding his sword in his name. And after his victory in Iraq, Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan called on Al-Hajjaj and told him, "No one else but you can get rid of Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr, who has rebelled against our rule in Mecca and refused to accept it."
Well, as long as he didn't obey, then of course he's considered a Khariji, one of the rebels. Or do you want to defend him too?
Do you even know who Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr is?
No, we don't know. Who is he, brother?
Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr was the first child born in Islam after the Hijrah. He was one of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He is the son of the two companions Al-Zubayr ibn al-Awwam and Asma bint Abi Bakr, which means that his grandfather was Abu Bakr, the first caliph of the Muslims after the Prophet's death. So look, my good man, terms like rebels and terrorists are always used by the victorious side against those they defeated for two reasons. Firstly, to give legitimacy to their supposedly great moral war, no matter how immoral it actually is. Secondly, to demonize anyone who sympathizes with the defeated side, so that if they utter even a single word, they're immediately accused of supporting terrorists. It's a very old game, even older than Al-Hajjaj himself. Even the acts of demolishing the homes of the families of the opposition and resistance were actually one of the innovations of Al-Hajjaj. He started implementing it with the people of Iraq to put pressure on the families of the resistance, so that these families would in turn pressure their sons and impose self-surveillance on them. It's basically a kind of internal policing coming from within their own circles. I'll get back to this point in a bit. And it wasn't just demolishing the homes of opponents. When Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr took refuge with his army at the sacred house at the Kaaba in Mecca, Al-Hajjaj ordered his army to strike them with catapults inside the Kaaba itself. Abu Muhammad, these people are in the sacred house of God. Yet he ordered them to strike, drawing his sword and saying, "Who dares object me?" And so he made his soldiers attack the holy sanctuary until parts of the Kaaba had collapsed. Can you imagine that? After that, Al-Hajjaj crucified Abdullah ibn al-Zubayr, then sent for Abdullah's mother, Asma bint Abi Bakr, to show her her son's corpse. When Asma bint Abi Bakr refused to go to him, he went to her instead. He said to her, "Here I am. I have killed the son of the woman with the two belts." She replied, "You have indeed destroyed his worldly life, but he has destroyed your afterlife. As for the two belts, I used one of them to hide the food I smuggled to the messenger of God, peace be upon him, during his hijrah with Abu Bakr." She told him these words right there in front of everyone. I wonder what those who say you can't question people in authority would think of Asma's actions. She put Al-Hajjaj in his place and humiliated him in front of all of Mecca. And this isn't just talk, it's all documented in the sources below. And what's also important here is that despite his wickedness, Al-Hajjaj walked away from her and couldn't touch a single hair on her head. He didn't set one of his dogs to tear her apart, nor did he mutilate her or make an example out of her. Do you know why? Because this would be an unspeakable shame that will stick to the one who did it all the way to his grave.
Why don't you take down those pictures next to you, son? You said you were going to talk about Al-Hajjaj. What's their relevance here?
No, uncle, it's just that one thing reminds me of another, and I'll give you another small example, so please bear with me. Al-Hajjaj's soldiers went once to arrest someone but couldn't find him, so they took his brother instead. The man asked why they arrested him. This had nothing to do with him. Here, Al-Hajjaj said, the one who has wronged you is the one who didn't turn himself in and let you be arrested, not I. So the man said, but Allah said in Surah Yusuf, so take one of us instead. We surely see you as one of the good doers. He responded, Allah forbid that we should take other than the one with whom we found our property. Otherwise, we would surely be unjust. So Al-Hajjaj feared his Lord when he heard the verse, and he backed down and let the man go. He also ordered the soldiers to rebuild the man's house, which had been demolished. We're talking about the wicked Al-Hajjaj, and the wicked truly means wicked. There is also a well-known saying, I see heads that are ripe, and the time has come to harvest them. This is the eloquent quote of Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf in his speech to the people of Kufa in Iraq when Abdul Malik ibn Marwan removed him from the governorship of the Hijaz and appointed him over the people of Iraq. The people of Iraq suffered greatly under his rule, enduring both killings and severe oppression. The extent of his tyranny is only known to Allah. But on the other hand, and to be fair, what else did he do? He prepared Muslim armies and sent them out. And as a result, during his era, the conquests reached Sindh and India, even up to the borders of China. We discussed his conquests in detail in the episode Muslims in India. For those who want to know more, Al-Hajjaj was the kind of person who, if he swore to kill someone and later realized that he'd mixed up his name, for example, if he said, I swear that I will kill Abdullah bin Muhsin, and they told him, no, you made a mistake, you meant Abdullah bin Hasin, Al-Hajjaj would say, well, I swore to it, so I'll just kill them both. This is the same man who was the generous and giving man. He was the kind of person who, if food was placed before him, would not reach out to eat until he had invited anyone, whether they were commanders, common people, or even the guards who were protecting him. He despised stinginess and used to say that being stingy with food is uglier than leprosy on the body. And this same Al-Hajjaj would provide 1,000 meals every day for the people of Iraq. He would say to them, my messenger to you is the sun. When it rises, come for lunch, and when it sets, come for dinner. Al-Hajjaj ruled over half of the Umayyad state, and the Umayyad state before your eyes stretched from Al-Andalus, which is present-day Spain, to Sindh, which is now Pakistan. Yet he was a criminal and a dictator. There's no debate about that. Even the Prophet's companions, peace be upon him, were not spared from him. In an interesting story, it was said that 2 men were captured with Sa'id ibn Jubair, the one who was killed, may he rest in peace. Before executing Sa'id, Al-Hajjaj ordered his soldiers to kill both men. Here, one of the men cried out saying, don't kill me, for Al-Ash'ath insulted your mother, and I stopped him. Al-Ash'ath was an opponent of the Umayyads, and these 2 men were among his followers. Al-Hajjaj said to him, maybe you're lying to me. What proof do I have you actually did that? The man replied, well, my companion beside me was present and witnessed it. So Al-Hajjaj asked the other man who confirmed the events. Here Al-Hajjaj said, then why didn't you defend me when I was being insulted? The man replied, because I hate you. Here he ordered the soldiers to release both men, the first for defending his mother, the second for his honesty. He was indeed a strange man, a very curious mix of good and evil at the same time. Al-Hasan al-Basri, one of the great scholars of Islam, heard that Al-Hajjaj had built a grand palace. Al-Hasan al-Basri stood before the palace and said to the people, tell Al-Hajjaj that Pharaoh built a palace even greater than this, and Allah took Pharaoh but left what he built. When Al-Hajjaj heard about this, he sent for Al-Hasan al-Basri and ordered the executioner present. And of course, everyone there was standing in full suspense and waited to see what Al-Hajjaj would do with Al-Hasan. But the awe of knowledge and the presence of Abu Sa'id al-Hasan al-Basri, may Allah have mercy on him, made Al-Hajjaj sit before this great scholar like a child and began to ask him ordinary questions. Al-Hasan al-Basri replied, this is permissible, this is forbidden, to the point where, when Al-Hasan al-Basri was leaving, Al-Hajjaj offered his special perfume to Al-Hasan. Even the guard escorting Abu Sa'id out said, by Allah, this is not why he called you. Abu Sa'id al-Hasan al-Basri smiled and said, by Allah, I know. I wonder if our ruler-obeying scholars are listening to this? Probably not. They're more likely on their coffee break. But they are excused as well. This all comes from self-sufficiency, independence, and holding the head high. But as long as he's the one feeding them and providing for them, how can they expect today's Al-Hajjaj to respect them? Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib used to pray next to Al-Hajjaj before he had power when he was a Quran teacher. He saw him pecking during the prayer, rushing through it to get it over with. So Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib grabbed him after prayer and said, you thief, you traitor, is this how you pray? By Allah, I almost struck your face with this sandal. Years later, Al-Hajjaj eventually became the governor and ruler, and he came to the scholar Sa'id ibn al-Musayyib in his mosque and said to him, are you the one who said those words? Ibn al-Musayyib struck his chest and replied, yes. Al-Hajjaj said to him, "May God reward you well for being my teacher and disciplinarian. Ever since I have never prayed a prayer without remembering your words." This same gentle man who treated people of knowledge with such kindness, he brought Sa'id ibn Jubair and placed him on the execution mat in his palace, the very place where he slaughtered his victims. And with utter coldness, he ordered the executioner to kill him. And this was when Ibn Jubair uttered his famous words, "O Allah, do not grant him power over anyone after me." And indeed, glory be to Allah, Allah did not grant him power over anyone after Sa'id. Al-Hajjaj was occupied by himself after being afflicted with illness, an inexplicable pain in his abdomen that no one could understand. He couldn't sleep all night because of it, to the point that his doctor, may you be spared, brought a piece of rotten meat, tied it with string, had him swallow it, and after a while pulled it out to find it full of worms, eating away at his insides. He would wake up screaming at night in terror, haunted by the image of Sa'id ibn Jubair and all his other victims. Despite everything he did for his religion and his country, mind you, despite his generosity, his giving, and even his forgiveness at times, Allah is just, exalted be He in the matters of wronging others. His suffering was a lesson for those who came after. At the age of 53, Al-Hajjaj was dying in his palace, surrounded by the most renowned and highly skilled doctors of his era, yet no one could cure him. And so, after all attempts failed, his soul finally departed, and Al-Hajjaj perished. His will was to be buried in an unknown place, so that no one would exhume his grave and mutilate him after his death. A despicable death befell on him, just like all other tyrants throughout history. Al-Hajjaj died in the year 95 Hijri, during the rule of Al-Walid ibn Abd al-Malik. A Muslim, a monotheist, yet an oppressor, a tyrant and a bloodshedder, generous, yet a murderer and a destroyer of homes. Now he is with his Lord and among those whom he honored and those upon whom he brought injustice. And to the judge of the day of judgment we shall all proceed, and before Allah all adversaries will gather. Wishing you well every year, may Allah accept from us and from you. And as usual, we'll end with the song Ramadan Ghana, just like every year. Until Allah Almighty frees our detainees and takes retribution from all the Hajjaj of our time. Everyone says, may Allah never end our traditions. But actually, I ask Allah Almighty to end this particular tradition for us, and that there will be no need for it next year. And may everyone return safely to their homes. And finally, wishing you well every year, Ramadan Kareem to us and to you, insha'Allah. Assalamu alaikum.